Thursday, May 28th. It is 6:30 p.m. This is the annual meeting where we have the school committee reorganization. So as superintendent, I'll start the meeting and begin with asking if there are any nominations for chair of the committee. We alternate between Chatham and Harwich each year per the regional agreement. This past year, Meredith Henderson served as chair from Harwich. So this year, we're looking for a Chatham rep to serve as chair. Mr. Duvall.
I nominate Brad Schiff for chair for next year.
Do we have a second?
A second.
I'll open it for debate. Hearing none, I'll ask people to vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Brad, it's unanimous. It's all yours.
I guess there's no backing out of it now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, next item, though, is we need to have a vice chair of the committee. I served this past year, and this year it is going to be somebody from the town of Harwich. So open it up for nominations. Brett?
I nominate Ryan Edwards.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion at all? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No? Anybody abstain? No. Okay, Ryan, you are vice chair. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Brian.
Okay, next item is approval of minutes. Understanding that the new members, by the way, Lucia Quinn also was a write-in candidate who won in Chatham, and she had already had a prior commitment tonight before knowing that she was going to be a write-in candidate. So anyway, she had to do it, but she's looking forward to being part of the committee. But understanding that those of you who are brand new were not part of the, to be able to look back at the minutes, but for the rest of us, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes from May 14th.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. We would have 3 abstentions, so, for the new members, okay. All right, now is the time for public comment. Not seeing anybody here tonight. We will move on to the meat of the meeting. First, I just want to be able to say to the new members, and I thought that it would take the opportunity to kind of introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourselves, and why you wanted to be on the committee as well. Rick, want to start with you?
Okay. My name is Richard Roy. All kinds of microphones. My name is Richard Roy. I've been on the Cape my entire life. I went to the Chatham school system when I was a child, and then returned to the town when we had the Monomoy regional school system. So I've been involved in a couple of different committees around the school systems, Portrait of a Graduate. Now I'm currently involved in the Monomoy regional school building committee. I've also was part of the PTO in the elementary school. My daughter was there and so on. So that's what I do around the school. And again, I just kind of, as I moved out of the PTO and doing some of the things in the other parts of the school, I decided that I would like to come here and be part of this. So especially seeing as I was part of the building committee, it seemed like the appropriate next step. Professionally, I'm an assistant chief up at the Massachusetts Port Authority Fire Department. That's what I do on my regular everyday thing, as well as multiple other things that I dip my toe in. So I like to say I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. So, and I have a propensity for having way too many hobbies. But other than that, I have one daughter in the school system, and she's in 5th grade, and we live in Harwich. So,
Great. Well, welcome, Rick.
Thank you.
My name is Katie Cutter. I have lived here for 20 years. I have 2 kids in the school system. They were both born here. They went through Harwich, and I have a son at the middle school who will be here next year, and a daughter who's a freshman here this year. I was president of the PTO at Harwich Elementary. I've been on some committees, some hiring committees, and the playground committee for Harwich. I was a track coach here some years ago. So this district means a lot to my family and me. It's been great for us. I'm really excited to be a part of this. And my husband and I, we live in Harwich with our kids.
Okay, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
My name is Heather Morgan. I've been on the Cape for about 22 years, living in Chatham. Have 2 kids that have gone through Monomoy school system, are currently a freshman and a sophomore here. One happens to be the student rep here, Daniel Morgan. So I'm very invested in the schools in Monomoy. I worked at Chatham Elementary. I was the vice president of the PTO there. I am currently a second grade teacher at Ezra Baker in Dennis. So hope to be able to bring the perspective of being inside the school, being inside the classrooms, and I'm very excited to support Monomoy.
Great. Well, thank you, Heather, and welcome. And we have no doubt that Dan will be a lawyer someday in the school committee somewhere. And I just want to, to say, this is the biggest change ever from what I understand in the history of the Monomoy Regional School Committee, where literally had half, and Brett, you just joined halfway through last year, so we've got like 4.5 new members, which I think is, Doctor, I think that's unprecedented in the 12-year history of the school system. But, just reading and hearing from all of you and reading about you all, we all come from very diverse backgrounds, and but it makes for a very collaborative and impactful team. And although we represent different towns, Harwich and Chatham, we have only one goal here, and that's for the best interests of all the students, the faculty, the administration, the staff, and the community of stakeholders. And the thing that I've been most impressed with, and this is my 3rd year now on the committee, and over the past 2 years, is how the group comes together to really address the issues that we all face and the opportunities that are in front of us. And again, it's always for the best interest of everybody, all the stakeholders in the Monomoy Regional School District. I have no doubt that this committee will do the same. And so with that, away we go, gang. Here we go. Okay? The next item is by the way, Doctor, did you want to say anything in terms of just the experience? And you've been here from day one in the Monomoy School and have worked with many people from the school committee from many different backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think it's great, we've seen turnover, but we actually, I think it's also refreshing that we have so many parents that are on the committee, and, and parents that have, past parents that have had, students that have been here, spouses, in the district. And I think there's a lot of different perspectives that we bring. It's nice to have Meredith, heading off, and you joining us to bring in that perspective from a teacher in the trenches too. And I know Katie and Rich over the years have just been doing so much with the PTO over at Harwich Elementary School. So I think there's just a lot of great strengths that each of you have to bring to the committee. And while it's been, we'll call it a seismic change in membership, I think that I'm very certain that the committee's going to be in great shape moving forward, because you're all here for all the right reasons.
Okay, thank you. Let's take a look at the next item, and you all have in your packet the meeting schedule for June so far. And I want to be able to also mention the July dates as well. So, again, we meet, for those of you who knew, we meet here typically 2 Thursdays a month. We start at 6:30 unless we have an executive session, which would start a little bit earlier. But the next 2 meetings are scheduled at 6:30. The June 24th, is that June 24th or June 25th? But I think there is a June 25th meeting. There's going to be a meeting with the Harwich Select Board and the Chatham Select Board, I'm told, in Chatham. And although we have not gotten a formal invitation yet, I would expect that we are going to be invited to that. It's going to be kind of the initial discussion about the Monomoy Regional School Committee, Regional School Agreement in terms of funding, and they're going to start discussing that night with both boards together. I anticipate we're going to be invited, haven't gotten a formal one, and I spoke to one of the select board members earlier tonight, just to remind them, if you want us to come, we need to get a formal invitation, we just don't want to show up. So anyways, that, and I believe that is the 25th on a Thursday, or 24th on a Thursday?
It's the 25th.
The 25th. So these dates are not correct then? June 10th? This should be June 11th?
This starts on July.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so far, very sorry. Yep. So anyways, those are the next 2 dates. Now, we've also got a meeting in July, and that is going to be, we do have meetings during the summertime, and we'll have a couple meetings, and we're also going to have a summer workshop. So this is going to be July 15th on a Wednesday evening. Just check on that. So that's on a Wednesday evening, and is that the only meeting that's going to be scheduled in July other than a summer workshop? Or are we going to be having another meeting in the end of July?
So I would say, fingers crossed, yes. One of the reasons we have that July meeting is there's a lot of sort of end-of-the-year financial things that need to get approved, and so there's a need annually to have a meeting towards the beginning of July. The committee typically meets on Thursdays, just in terms of calendar. That Wednesdays when we need to squeeze this in.
I can just comment on the July 15th meeting date. So July 15th is when our financial year closes. So if it was on a Thursday, it would be too late for us to approve any final payments from FY26. So that's why I'm scheduled for the Wednesday. So we can get everybody.
Does that work for everybody?
I may
Okay.
have a conflict, but
All right.
I may have a conflict. We can talk afterwards.
Sure. And again, if you cannot make a meeting or you're going to be late, if you can just let me know ahead of time. We do have to have a quorum here in order to have a meeting, and 5 members, and so anyways, just to keep those lines of communication open. Did you have something else, Michael?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. We're also, during the summertime, are going to have a workshop, and the workshop is for to be able to get some, the administration, some of the different issues that we're going to be talking about for the year, talk about our own goals and objectives as a school committee, which is critical. We work on that, as well as perhaps also talk about the superintendent's goals going forward as well. So we'll have that workshop, and what we'll do, it'll be sometime in August, and what we'll do is we'll have a calendar sent to everybody, those little doodle calendars, and just kind of put the dates in that you're available. I know a lot of people are going to be taking vacations then, and so we'll figure out a date in August to do that. Okay. All right. This is also the schedule for the entire year. Again, you see that the meetings, other than if they're set at a separate time, is going to be 6:30 at night. The meetings are here. And sometimes, again, executive session could be at a 5:30, 6 o'clock. Those are kind of intermittent, but will happen during the course of the year. Any questions on that at all in terms of schedule? Yes, Ryan?
I have a comment. So I know the last 2 years, we have had to add another meeting for the first reading of the superintendent evaluation. So I'm just wondering if maybe we put it on the schedule now for April 29th. I believe the last 2 years, in the springtime, an extra meeting has been added. So I'm just wondering if that's something we want to plan ahead of time.
I know we did this year. I don't recall if it was last year, but was there another reason why this year that for some reason it got, I don't recall what the reason was, but I think the item just had to be moved because you were not going to be here?
Yeah, that was part of the funkiness, is
Okay.
that I think the day that everybody, or that we had it on the calendar, was also the same day that my daughter was graduating from college. So I was like, I would have been happy to have you evaluate me without me being here, but, but I think, I also do think it might also not be a bad idea, even if it's not the superintendent evaluation. What we also find at that time of year is we have town meetings coming up, and there's oftentimes pivoting that needs to happen in, those, the time heading into town meeting. Let's hope that that's not going to be the case this coming year, but that has been something that's happened in the past.
Well, how about this? Why don't we tentatively schedule, it would be April 29th, which would be that Thursday, and why don't we put that in, and if we need it. The other thing, too, is there's a lot of, very often, Melissa, I know there's a number of policies that are trying to be approved by the end of the school year, and if we need that extra date to be able to do that, then let's put that in and hold it. So that would be April 29th, 2027. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Scott?
I was just going to comment on, just for the sake of the newer members, so the meeting, it's not an our meeting, that's the meeting between the select boards on the 25th, which, presumably that's, we have a date on our calendar for this school year for a Thursday meeting on the 25th. The way the regional agreement is written is it's an agreement between the two towns, so technically it's the two select boards that need to have this conversation. But at the end of the day, the school committee, I think, is going to need to play a really important role in helping, sort of bring the two boards to some sort of middle ground where at the end of the day, we're both trying to keep in mind, sort of the wants of the taxpayers of two towns and the needs of the school district to go and be supporting a strong program, for the students. And I think that it's going to be it'll be a challenging conversation, and I think the more the school committee can get involved on the front end of that, the better. So I'm sure that we'll be invited, and I hope that everybody can be there and try to play that sort of middle of the road. I've always joked that the role of a superintendent in a regional school district is sometimes a marriage counselor. As I'm heading out the door, I'm leaving it to the 8 of you to help be co-marriage counselors in this.
Scott, I wonder if it may make sense, again, for the newer members and a refresher for the rest of us, before that meeting, maybe for the next meeting, which, by the way, is June 11th, to go through the presentation that you made last year and kind of going through the beginnings of it and how it went and kind of,
Sure.
the different parameters of it, if that made sense to put that on the agenda.
We can do that.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, anything else about dates? All right, and for you new members, not only do you get to come to school committee meetings twice a month, you get drafted on subcommittees as well. So I'm going to go through the different subcommittees. We're not going to decide them tonight and who's going to be on there, but we're all expected to participate on these subcommittees. Typically, they may meet once a month. And there are different times when different ones are being done, the budget during the budget season, and then there's kind of a representative or a liaison for some of these other subcommittees as well. So some of them a little bit more heavy lifting than others, but it's certainly a way to be able to really understand what the issues are and the inner workings of things that we have to decide upon. Many of the times, those issues have to be agreed upon in subcommittee before they come here and get voted on by the larger body. So let me go through some of these right now. The superintendent evaluation is literally what it is. It's going to be And again, what we do is on these first group is we'll have 4 people on, 2 members from Chatham, 2 members from Harwich have to be on. So superintendent evaluation is literally going through and evaluating the superintendent's performance against the objectives. Finance is the budgeting, very, very critical, going through the budgeting and vetting it from the time the principals come together, and as well as our business manager, Michael, comes together and presents all the different costs and potential trade-offs and making a decision before it comes here and before it goes to the towns. A negotiation committee, subcommittee is working on the various union issues that could come up. Warrant and payroll, I think those are just 2 assigned that come up here just to be able to make sure that these warrants, by the way, that were going around are the invoices for the different services here at the school, which there's a name for everybody to, a slot for all of you to sign. The best thing to do is be able to go through these. They're sent out to you a couple days ahead of time to be able to go through there. You don't want to just sign something that, you haven't looked at. Policy subcommittee, the different policies that come up that have to be revised because of state direction, or some for the school in terms that need to be revised based on what we think are the best policies going forward. Westgate Foundation is, some of these others here, there's just, one individual who would have to be on it. Westgate is designated for supporting the, let me see here, Westgate, not having been on it before, but in terms of supporting the development of the school district. The sick bank, is this something that we need to have, or can we eliminate this?
I think largely, I would say you don't necessarily need the sick bank. Is you've got the negotiations subcommittee can kind of, if there's a sick bank question, sort of have it punted over to negotiations. So I would say for brevity's sake, I would just scratch that.
Cape Cod Collaborative, I've been in it over the last year and a half. It's very important. It's kind of a unique thing. It's where there is a representative from all 20 school systems of the Cape and Islands, and it's for the schools in Austerville and Yarmouth that service students with special needs. And it is working with all of the one school representative, one representative from each of the school committees, and working through the different issues that they have. District Wellness Committee is working on, again, policies that come up for nutrition and health for the best interest of the students. The Building Subcommittee is for the, right now is the subcommittee for the middle school and the different issues which they have. Special Education PAC is an advisory group, a parent advisory group to recommend different programs. Select Board and Finance Committees are merely the representative. 2 have to be from Chatham, 2 have to be from Harwich to the different bodies in both towns. The Regional Agreement Working Group is for what we anticipate having members on it, depending upon what comes out of the Select Board discussions with Harwich and Chatham. And then legislation is working on recommendations for the legislative delegation. Okay. All right, so what I'd like all of you to do, take this back and then fill out which ones you would like to participate in, and try to match up as much as we can to be able to, Ryan and I will go through, we'll try to match up as much as you can to the ones that you want. You may be able to get those, you might get assigned something else, but I will tell you, in your journey here through the school committee, you'd want to be on as many different committees as you want, as you can be on, so that you can learn the different facets of it. And what we'll do is bring it down next time, we'll tabulate it, and then we'll we'll be able to, the second time, if we're able to, in that end of July, depending upon the makeup of that meeting, June, rather, we will be able to, announce, who's on what committee. Most of these are not going to start till September anyway. There might be, something that has to come up depending upon the urgency of the matter, but most of them won't happen until the fall.
Just in terms of time commitments, the Finance Subcommittee has a pretty intense time commitment, particularly in that, that timeframe, January heading into town meeting. There's several meetings there. Negotiations will be going into contract negotiations with the MREA, which represents our teachers, teaching assistants, clerical staff, cafeteria workers next year. So, so there are separate negotiations for each one of those groupings, and it will be a significant time commitment for the negotiations subcommittee, but an extremely important one for the district, and important in terms of, the school committee needs to be ready to go to the bargaining table, ideally early enough, so that hopefully some sort of agreement can be reached in time to inform the budgeting process, which will then help out the Finance Subcommittee in clarity with regard to the budget the following year. Policy Subcommittee, I know, takes a pretty reasonable time commitment there. I know that Rich has been on the Building Committee. I think Steve will be joining the Building Committee, but that's a fairly significant time investment now that we have sort of full-blown construction that's going on the siding and windows, but there's also a roofing project that will be right on the heels of that, and we'll be having to line up everything with that, whole bidding process and contractor before the, siding project's, wrapped up. And then I would anticipate that regional agreement working subcommittee is going to, let's hope that there's a pretty reasonable time involved, that there's some sort of change that needs, that needs to kind of be worked through. Just in terms of the regional agreement, we'd have to work on the wording in a time frame that we're sending the wording to the state to make sure that the commissioner is going to be able to agree to sign off on it before we, put it out to the towns and, and to town meetings, because you don't want to have town meetings pass something and have the commissioner say, okay, we're not, I'm not going to support this. So, so there's that's going to probably, if something's going to happen for next year, it actually has to be front-loaded on the front side of the school year. So I'd say negotiations and anything that's happening on that one is going to be on the front end. Building committees going to be throughout, policies throughout the year, and finances maybe light on the very front end, but kind of heavy in the, right after the holiday break, into town meeting.
Anyways, what we'll do is we'll send this out to everybody electronically, and please fill it out and just get it back to me before the next meeting in June. So if you can get it to me, I think what we'll do, and I'll have to explain this to Lucy as well, but we'll finalize this by the end of June. Again, don't anticipate any committees probably going to be meeting until the fall. All right, any other questions on that? Okay. The Wellness Committee report. Melissa.
Good evening, Melissa McGuire, I'm the Director of Student Services. I also chair the Wellness Committee. So tonight I'm going to present our wellness report and the activities of the Wellness Committee. So first and most importantly, why do we have a Wellness Committee? We're required to have a Wellness Committee. And purpose is really to develop and propose the district wellness policy, to develop measurable goals as a result of that policy, and then to assess triannually how we are implementing that policy. So we started off really strong. We had about 40 folks who showed interest in being part of the committee. And it dwindled down to, we had about 8 to 10 folks who participated throughout the year. We have an administrator, we have a school nurse and other staff, we have parents and guardians, and our, to me, most important voice, we had several students that were on the committee this year, and our food service director. We meet 4 times a year, and this year's agenda was really packed because, in a minute I'll talk a little bit about the grant, but the first meeting we looked at the policy itself and discussed our DESE coaching, which we received as part of a grant this year, and our plan. Our second meeting, we met with our coach from DESE and assessed our policy using the Alliance for Healthier Generation. And then the last two meetings, we worked on our revisions based on the assessment, and then that then had to go to DESE for a review before it was then presented to the policy subcommittee. So we finalized that in April and then submitted it to the policy subcommittee. And I believe it's on for second read this evening. Our core strategic objectives in really thinking about wellness is first and foremost a healthy school environment, really looking at the climate and the culture and ensuring that our students have a very healthy environment to learn and to grow in. And then also community connections, making sure that we're partnering with our families, with other community partners. Matt has done a nice job with really reaching out to some of our community partners for fresh food, farm to table. If you're in Harwich, you know that there's a big box of apples that is in the office. Even at the high school, one of our programs, we talked about healthy snacks for students, and he's got a big bowl of apples in his classroom, and which is really nice, and the kids were excited about that. So we were happy to be able to offer the fresh fruits. So just, research-wise, we know that healthy behaviors, healthy nutrition, exercise definitely increases achievement and success for students. And by the way, all the pictures are our munchkins at work, engaging in really good, healthy choices. Our program pillars, nutrition, we do comply with USDA in terms of our meals. And I'll talk a little bit about the survey we did related to our meals, ensuring that there's minimally 20 minutes of daily recess, exercise, or structured physical education, and it does go above and beyond that, but minimally we wanted to make sure that that was happening. And then addressing mental wellness, making sure social emotional learning and our school counseling are all part of our wellness. So the grant that we received this year was through DESE, and it was for a coach, a wellness coach. And so we started that right in the beginning of the school year, meeting with Charlotte, who was our coach. And she worked with us the entire year to really help support us navigate some of the requirements that we needed to have in our policy, and to really make our policy more effective in terms of what the requirements were. And as a result of the work that we did this year, we also received an award and for the healthy programs. And we were able to send one of our students, Davion, and BMB, one of our wellness teachers, to the conference, which was great. They had to leave about 5 o'clock in the morning to get to the conference, and they participated in a couple of breakout sessions, and we were provided with this banner for the work that we did this year. So kudos to our students and our members and our staff who participated. So it's a 3-year process. Year 1 is, establishing a committee and doing the initial assessment. And then year 2 is policy draft and reviewing the goals and establishing goals. This year we kind of did a double hitter because we had the grant, so we did the assessment and we did a revision to the policy. So we kind of did 2 years in one. But next year, we'll continue to, obviously continue to review the policy, and next year we'll establish goals, new goals, as a result of hopefully the policy that is voted on tonight. And then year 3, really looking at the district-wide full implementation, data collection on the goals, and then bringing it back into year 1 again of doing the assessment. So in terms of the assessment, again, we did the assessment with the coach and the members of the wellness committee, and I included the assessment, and the assessment is quite cumbersome, quite frankly. There's a lot to it. And because it's a yes or no, what I really wanted to stress is that not everything is requirement in the assessment. There's a lot of nice to haves, and there's a lot of things that when we went through it, we're like, oh my goodness, we don't do all of this. And it was made clear to us, you don't have to do all of it. You get to decide what things are important to you, what does the committee feel we want to work on. So if you look at it, you can see next to even some of the yeses, but some of the partials and nos working on. So we wanted to identify areas that we wanted to work on. And even though there were some partials, like for example, completing the assessment, because we were in the middle of doing the assessment, we couldn't say, yes, it was done yet. We didn't complete it till December. So it can be a little misleading if you don't explain really how that assessment works. But some of the strengths that came out of that is certainly our wellness committee. We've had an established wellness committee for the 10 years I've been here. And it's been very well attended, and so we're happy that that continues to be successful each year. There is an identified administrator. The policy currently assigns my role as the chair of the committee. We've always had a school committee member on the committee as well. We have a strength of updating our goals and communicating those goals out. Our food, in terms of processed food, that was a strength for us. As I said, Mac has done a really nice job, especially with the farm to table and looking into other avenues for fresh food, fresh fish. He also had tomatoes this year. I think it was twice a month he had fresh tomatoes coming in, and he did a dish with the fresh tomatoes. So that's definitely a strength. Foods and beverages provided for school events. Again, Mac does a really nice job when there's any type of event, really coming up with some, nice items for those events. Our smart snack standards, and then the goals related to physical activity and physical education, those were all strengths. The partially assessed, or which are now completed, interestingly enough, we've been doing this long enough, but public notice, one of the things, and it's never been brought to our attention, but the minutes to the meetings have to be posted on the website. So I went back literally to 2017 and posted them all on the website, so you can go to a wellness section now, see the agenda, see all of the minutes from the meetings for the past years. And then, of course, our assessment was completed in December. Areas that we wanted to work on and that we included and updated in the policy draft was compliance with USD nutrition. Not that we weren't, but we wanted to strengthen the language around that, so we included that in the proposed policy. Access to potable water, that had never been in our policy. I mean, there's water fountains and kids use their water bottles and fill up, but it was actually never in the policy that there would be access to potable water. So it wasn't that we weren't doing these things, they just weren't kind of codified in the policy. We strengthened language for the food and beverages sold to students, and smart snack standards for fundraising. That can be a tricky one because a lot of times the PTOs are doing the fundraisers, and a lot of times that has to do with food. And so we're trying to, we want to be very thoughtful about that. If we're trying to really promote nutrition, that we want to think about if we're going to have fundraisers. Is there a way to include the smart snack standards in those type of fundraisers? And then the new education standards, there's a new wellness framework, so making sure that language is in the policy as well. So a lot came out of the assessment, so we were pleased with that. So in just kind of further details of what we proposed in the policy, updating, and it's really, was more about language updating and then reorganizing things that were a little bit redundant under some of the sections, but just really strengthening some of the language, especially like adding postings to the website, clarified what the survey is in terms of the triannual survey that we conduct, clarified the roles of the committee members. We updated the nutrition section. Based on the National School Lunch Program, we included the resources and the links to those resources. We did clarify in the policy, we did think this was important about sharing of food and beverages, especially within the classrooms where there's snacks, to make sure that we're really paying attention and that there is no sharing of food in the classroom. Again, the potable water. We added the professional learning for school nutrition professionals. That is part of our mandated training, and interestingly enough, the mandated training for our food service exceeds our mandated trainings for our staff. It's incredible how much they actually have to do in terms of their professional development. It was never included in that because it was part of our mandated training, so we did include it in the policy that happens. And then we updated, especially the piece about rewards, incentives, and celebrations. We're really trying to reinforce other ways to have celebrations outside of food. And how can we really, ensure that classroom teachers have the resources that they need to reinforce those events. And then finally, we included the new physical education frameworks and, what those physical activity opportunities are. So we did quite a bit of work on the policy this year. In terms of our indicators, which were our goals this year, the first goal we had was for an open house. So Mac had scheduled open houses at the buildings, and 2 of the buildings he actually provided tours for parents who were interested in touring the kitchens. The fresh and local options, as I said, Mac has done a nice job. He's built a relationship with Chatham Bars Inn Farm, Hillside Farm, and then again had fresh tomatoes served twice monthly. He's done some other things. This is just kind of some highlights. And I think I put a little bit more detail in the report. I wasn't going to put those all on slides. The other one was the survey to families. I did put the summary of results in the report, but there were over 500 responses that were received. So we were really happy about that, and in the report it talked a little bit about what are those areas that folks were talking about and what has been done or what will be done to respond to this survey. The goal is to have it done twice a year, and to have it in the beginning of the year to find out, what our students, our staff, and our families are looking for, and then to have it at the end of the year to see how people are feeling. So we did it just the one time this year because we just established that goal. So we'll do it twice next year. And then really looking at the movement, that was really important. We've been talking about that in terms of how do we really increase the level of movement activity, not just during recess or during physical education, but embedding it into classroom routines. And so they really, if you looked at the report, there's a litany of activities and an increase in activities that they're being very mindful of. In terms of engaging students, especially during class time with those opportunities. And then the goal for next year, I think we were overzealous in saying, what our goal was, and we were going to do time sampling of how much physical activity. And we get the physical activities going, we didn't quite get to the time sampling, so we're going to move that to next year, just so we can kind of see, is there an increase in the physical activity for students? So we'll address that next year. And again, the triennial assessment we completed in December. And then, there's a little, most of you don't know, but I love videos of our kids. Some of you do. I always feel like I need to end with just those munchkins' faces and how happy they are. But these are just some of the pictures.
She's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way.
Short and sweet this time. Sometimes they're a little longer, but happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I just want to say, I was on the Wellness Committee a year ago, and really enjoyed the experience very, very much. Not only, obviously, want to be able to address all the objectives that the committee has, but working with the parents and working with the kids really was a lot of fun and very enlightening. So a great subcommittee to be in.
That was a nice plug for everyone who's.
No one wants to do it, I'll do it again next year. Okay, thank you, Melissa. Next is the Outdoor Clubs Field Trip. Welcome. Very well.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is John Dixon. I'm a teacher at the high school. This year, we started an outdoors club, Mrs. Lang and myself, and we had students coming all year to JOSN meetings, and we hatched one plan for a trip that didn't end up happening in April because all the juniors realized parents were going to take them on their college tours and take a break. So they were not available. We did do a hike on a Saturday in Provincetown, and now we're anticipating, or we're asking for approval for our first overnight trip, which is scheduled, or we're scheduling for September in New Hampshire. And it'd be a dozen students, Ms. Blank and I. We're going to go up Friday afternoon, go up to camp at Cardigan Mountain Campsite, which is an AMC site, and then we will pitch tents, stay there Friday night, have a nice long hiking day on Saturday, stay there Saturday night, and then come back on Sunday. And that is the plan. And so we, I believe you have an itinerary that was given to you.
Yes. It's on the next page.
So I'm happy to answer any questions and love your approval of the trip.
Any questions? Do you need approval tonight? Typically, what we would do is wait for, the next meeting, but do you need approval tonight?
I feel like we have this conversation every time.
We do. We always will.
I love the approval
Okay.
tonight. What we'd like to do is be able to reserve the campsites, which is, it's $200 to reserve the campsite for 2 nights. And we don't want to go forward until we have approval, and so we'd like to go forward sooner rather than later. Make sure we get it before the end of the school year.
All right. Are there any questions? We okay to vote on this tonight? All right. Someone make the motion. Steve?
I move that we approve the Outdoors Club field trip for September 2026 to Alexandria, New Hampshire.
Okay, a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstain? Okay, you got it.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
We'll do this again next year. And,
We'll be back from DC in September.
All right, sounds great. Thank you so much. The second reading of a number of policies, Ryan.
Sure.
And just to let everybody know, Ryan has been, this past year, the subcommittee chairman of policies.
Mr. Chair, with a few new members, do we want to go through each policy separately?
Why don't we, Ryan?
Okay.
Just so that they understand, otherwise won't be know what they're voting for, so.
Okay. The first one up is file JICFB, Bullying Prevention and Intervention Plan. Does the Director of Student Services want to speak on this one at all? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Just a second.
Sorry. So this again was a process we put out for a committee to review the policy and to propose changes to the policy. It was a great group of folks, and again, the students, I can't tell you how impressive it is when the students' voice is, loud and clear about, what they believe and what should happen, and so I'm very proud of our students for participating. But we did have parents, we had staff, I chaired that committee as well, and, we spent a lot of time really working on it, looking at the exemplar state policy to make sure we didn't miss anything, so that it was inclusive of, all the language that we needed to have. So there were definitely some changes that we proposed, nothing substantive in terms of like legal, but really clarifying, especially the roles of people and what the expectations are. Should there be a suspected bullying case or somebody is filing for bullying? So we really wanted to make that clear. We heard that from parents. We don't know who to go to or who's supposed to do what. So we created a really nice, what I believe, flow chart of who's responsible. So other than that, it was just clarity of language and adding a few additional, pieces that explain the process. But happy to answer any questions. And just for, new folks, for the bullying on our website, you can call in, you don't have to fill out a form. You can fill out a form, or you can do an anonymous, form that comes. It all comes to me. And then what happens is I look and see where is that, and then I share that with the principal, and then they, immediately address it, so.
And just taking a step back for a moment, just to talk about the process of how we do this. We have the policy, particularly the policy subcommittee presenting, we'll have a first reading. The first reading will be to take a look at it, answer any questions. It may go back to, the subcommittee will clarify anything that we may not understand or may disagree with something. Either then it will go for a second reading, or it goes back to the subcommittee to make any types of changes and tweaks before it comes back for second reading. We had approved this at the first, couple of weeks ago, for the first reading, and then it was able to come to the second reading, which is where we are tonight. Any questions on this policy? Okay.
I'll make a motion that we accept file JICFP, Bullying Prevention and Intervention Plan Policy as presented in the packet.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. I think Stephen did. It was like a tie, but Stephen was closer to me, so I heard that sooner. Then it took all his 10 feet to come over.
Proximity is
For Brett.
deciding.
Okay. Positioning's everything, right? Okay.
Next up is file ADF, the wellness policy on physical activity and nutrition. We got the presentation on that tonight. So unless there's any questions or discussion on that, I can make another motion. Good to go. All right.
Brian?
I make a motion that we accept file ADF, the wellness policy on physical activity and nutrition policy, as presented in the packet.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was Brett making the second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, that is approved.
Up next is file JF, school admissions. This one was just to add some language, just to be consistent with our admissions paperwork that was recommended. No substantial changes otherwise. Any discussion on this one? I make a motion that we accept file JF, school admissions policy as presented in the packet.
Have a second?
Second.
A little slow on that, Stephen. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, approved.
Great. Up next is file DMA, cash in school buildings. There was a policy that had cash and personal property, and as you'll see next, we separated it out. So one policy has to do with cash, and the other policy has to do with personal property in school buildings. And we added that first paragraph to the cash in the school buildings, just to make it clear what the process is for fundraisers or events where they charge admission, just so there's some language related to that. Any questions? I make a motion that we accept file DMA, cash in school buildings, as presented in the packet.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Approved.
Great. And lastly, we have file DMB, personal property and school buildings. And again, this was just to separate those two out. So I'll make a motion that we accept file DMB, personal property and school buildings as presented in the packet.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, all approved. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you, Subcommittee on Policies. All right, I know Michael is very excited about, most excited I've ever seen him on any particular report that he's had before. So, Michael, if you can present this, please.
Yes, Michael Miller, School Business Manager. You know, the brand of school committee would like to present something more specialist than trash collection in the school. But this is critical to the, ongoing well-being of our building and the successful performance of everyone there. So we've had a contract with another vendor, Millie Trucking, since before I was here, I think since this district was put in place. And we have not gone back out to bid for that. So trash collection and disposal is in this weird place where it is exempt from procurement regulations that we're under for normal contracts. So it had not been bid out again. And we've had a good relationship with Millie. However, I did receive, I was, got in touch with from other vendors who were interested on bidding on the contract, and in the interest of fair competition and ensuring that we continue to get the best deal for the district, I took the decision to put it out to bid, and we issued a formal bid document, which we put out a few weeks ago, and we've invited 8 bids from any vendors, and then we received 3 bids. So what I did go out to bid for, and the reason we're here, is that I put out for a 5-year contract. So it's 3 years and then up to 2 additional years at the instigation of the district. So if everything's going well, then we can extend the district for up to 5 years. Any contract more than 3 years requires board approval, which is because we are able to sign contracts for 3 years and under without getting school committee approval. But when we go over 3, we have to come to move for approval. In this instance, I think it's a good idea to have 5 because, if it's good, we can just keep going with the vendor we have. We also get to lock in the price for 5 years, so we have that competition now. We lock in that price for 5 years. It's a relatively standard process. It doesn't change, the needs don't change significantly. We might add a container, reduce the size of a container, but it feels relatively consistent from year to year, which is why I'm comfortable with 5 years. We received 3 bids, and unfortunately, Millie Trucking, the current company, was not the low bidder, and the low bidder was Barrows Waste Systems, also a local company, which I was pleased about. So they were the low bidder. They were the company that contacted me and asked to be able to submit bid, and they've been really aggressively pursuing the contract, which I think is encouraging. We had a pre-bid meeting. The 2 people from Barrows came to that meeting, to find out more information about what was in the bid, and then they submitted a low bid. They provided 4 references whom all 4 I checked, and they were glowing, really positive feedback, which is encouraging. And this is lower than we budgeted because our budget was based on what we paid prior to for FY6 and before, and this contract is going ahead will be lower. So that's awesome. So I'm really pleased we went through this process. It feels like a win-win for the district, and subject to your approval, looking forward to working with this meeting.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification. So it gives the price for the low bidder, and it says 4 or 5 years. So is that bid price the price each year for 5 years?
No, that's a great question. So that's the price for all 5 years.
Okay.
So when it's interesting only to me, but under the state law, whenever you have to compare the price of the total possible years.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, quick question about in the contract that we would award to Burroughs, does it have any language in there about if they're hauling to a place that the price goes up for the trash or anything? So is this locked in, or is it?
No, so there is, so because it's 5 years, that's also another great point. I was conscious that, I mean, I know Chatham is about to increase their rates. The Barrows doesn't actually go to Chatham, but they're about to increase their rates. So I wanted to build in some way of allowing the vendor to feel comfortable giving us a good rate for 5 years, but not locked in. I mean, if the rates go up significantly, I think it's only reasonable that we can negotiate with them. So there is wording in there that after the second year, if there's a significant increase, I can't remember the exact percentage, but they can come and present that information to us and we can negotiate over how much of it. So, how much of it we cover. So if their fees go up, they have the opportunity to make the case to us to pay for the portion of those increases.
Okay. I mean, because my concern is that Millie being the local trucking company and going to Chatham with their increase, that's probably what got built into their price.
Yeah.
That, I mean, it is a $100,000 difference, so
Yeah.
it is substantial.
Yeah, on everything you're saying, I agree. Yeah, so, I mean, it's hard when you've been with a company for a long time because you feel some degree of loyalty with them, especially when they've been a good company and they've responded to all our needs. But, at the end of the day, when you get a cheaper option and their references check out and they have experience, it's hard not to make the change.
Yeah, that was my only concern, is that if we were allowing them to increase to a point where they were going to catch that.
So, I mean, and we also, so if they came to us and the increases were significant, we also have the opportunity to just go back into bid. So if we think, even within 3 years, if there was a significant increase, we would have that opportunity. There is also a thing about diesel, so there, as if the diesel costs change significantly, that's also another grounds for renegotiation.
Okay. So, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Brett?
I move that the Monomoy Regional School Committee authorize the district to enter into a contract with Barrows Waste Systems LLC for the collection and disposal of solid waste and recyclables for an initial term of 3 years with 2 subsequent 1-year contract extensions at the district's sole discretion for a total potential contract term of 5 years.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you, Michael. All right, let's go to subcommittees. And Doctor, do you want to take the building committee?
I'll start it, and I'll feel free to hand off to Rich, too. So the middle school building renovation project is going along at a rapid pace. I think if you go particularly on the back side of the building, you'll see entire sides that are completed on the back side of the Slim Jim. There's the sidings all the way up with the new windows in. There have been some, we'll call them heated conversations, maybe with regard to the window installation, and my take would be is there are a lot of different ways to build mousetraps, and I think the architects have a design that that has been approved and vetted, and we also have some. We have a building committee with incredible expertise on it, some of whom would build the mousetrap a little differently than the way the architects have designed it. So, so we've had some meetings, that really have focused on the window installation and how the windows should be trimmed around the windows. I would say it's not thoroughly resolved, because even as I'm sitting here in this meeting, Michael and I are both getting pegged with emails about window installation. We only get about 50 of those a day, it seems, but that's that's what the conversations have been. I don't know if you want to go and chime in any more on that.
We met on Tuesday with all of the concerned parties, which range from the architect to the OPM to the contractor, who's the GC. There have been concerns from members of the committee that are very well-versed in, construction. A couple of things, as Scott kind of pointed out, there are many ways to build a mousetrap, that's for sure, and you can go about it in many different ways. This is a commercial building, it's also a remodel, and as we know, the architects try very hard to account for all the possible iterations that may come along when you're installing windows and making them watertight. And so what we're finding is that as we go into this building and you start to take out the old windows and try to fit in the new windows, we're running into issues where they're not a perfect fit. The walls aren't necessarily plumb, they're not necessarily level, so we have to make adjustments for it. The issues that we're having is that in order to account for those adjustments, some of the committee members feel that there's shortcuts that are being taken that may not make it as watertight as we would like it to see. That's, I think, why you have a subcommittee, that's why I think you have a building committee, and I think we're lucky to have the members that we have on it, because they are taking their time to go down and walk the school. As Scott would tell you, one of them was there on Friday afternoon with a level in hand, going around to make sure that at least the windows were put in level and plumb and so on. So is there some very strict, examining going on of these things? Of course there is, which is only a thing to benefit us. During the meeting that we had on Tuesday, the previous meeting we had to that, there was definitely a lot of conversation had around, well, we're trying to keep a schedule, and that's understandable. However, Pearl, the general contractor, entered into the bid, knowing that there could be potential pitfalls to remodeling the building, and therefore, they kind of own the schedule to a certain degree. The comment that I made in the meeting, and, looking around the room, not to put my foot in my mouth, which I may very well do, I said, one of the things I don't want to hear is I don't want to hear that we're cutting corners or we're proceeding with work that we should have had stopped so that the architects could have had a second to regroup and think of a better way to build a mousetrap. And that's in lieu of that whole schedule idea. So I said, working with the school district and the building committee and all the parties involved, we certainly should be looking at this from an angle of if we have to do what I would call a tactical pause and come up with a better way to do things, let's do that now versus find out that we're going to get, and I explained to him, I said, you asked the towns of Chatham and Harwich we asked the towns of Chatham and Harwich for $9 million, right? $9 million plus for the siding project. And then we just went back and asked for a total of $11 million for the roofing project. That's a substantial investment in that building. We have a finite amount of land in both these towns. We're not tearing that building down anytime soon. We're not building a new building. I keep going back to look at Orleans trying to find a fire department location, right? So they had to take land by eminent domain. It's not a wise choice for us. We're putting $20 million into this building. We want to make sure that it's done correctly so that it will last for as long as we can get out of it. Because I think that's one of the buildings, much like this building, that's going to be an anchor for this region, for the regional school system. So I think all that was heard by the OPM and the architects and Pearl, the general contractor, and I think we're working towards a better place. I think, we just have to stay on it. So we'll continue to stay on it as best we can, and hopefully we'll get some resolution to a couple of the items in the, week moving forward, and, we'll come to the better mousetrap.
The building subcommittee since day one has been a real model of commitment, collaboration, expertise, and effectiveness. And it's really something to be able to see this really, being transformed now.
I think, another thing, beyond the windows that I think the school committee should just be aware of is, ideally, we, don't want to see mold when they're opening up walls. But we also know going into this that given some of the rot around many of the windows, that there was a high likelihood that we'd encounter mold in some places, and the level of sort of removing of the outside layer of that building has been completely removed. So the shingles are gone. They remove all of plywood. If the insulation is contaminated by rodents, they remove the insulation, replace the insulation. So you're getting a brand new building, literally from the drywall on the inside out, and they're doing a great job of that. There have been a couple spots that we've run into that we know we're going to have some change orders that we anticipated. We just didn't know until everything was removed where they're going to be. We know that the area where the school resource officer is in the building, for whatever reason, when it was initially put together in that area, which is towards the main office, there should have been some sort of vapor barrier between the studs and the drywall. So you had wet walls, insulation, and then straight to drywall. So there's an entire office that we know that at some point this summer we're going to have contractors go in and completely gut the drywall on the inside of that office, and we don't know how many more examples of that are going to get encountered as they go around. Fingers crossed. They've strategically gone after removing some of the spots that they thought would be worse in the buildings, and they've actually turned out to be much better behind the walls than they were anticipating. There's also 2 spots in the upper gables of the main gymnasium that we didn't think were going to be an issue, that there's an issue that they need to do some exploratory work in. We have been pushing hard on them that, you can't do any work in the gymnasium until we have the slim gym back, so that because we have to function for the rest of the school year. So we know that at some point they're going to have to go and do some exploratory work and try to figure out, okay, what the extent of the mold issue is in an area that we didn't think there was going to be any, but the architects are working on sort of a plan of attack on how to go resolve that issue, the poor project managers or project folks for Pearl, like every time they see me, I'm like, when am I getting the Slim Jim back? And it's, so I think in a lot of ways, the summer can't get here soon enough, so we can give them access to the whole building and have our staff and kids out of the way. But it's going along, and it's just refreshing. It's nice to see things every day. Even just before this meeting, Robin and I drove up to the building, and the windows that over the weekend were just plywood in the front of the library have been replaced with these big, new, sparkling, clear windows that just will give the whole front of the building just such a much better look than it had in the past.
Okay, great, thank you. Superintendent's report.
Just a few recognitions, and then just some important dates. It's that time of the year, and before we next meet, we will have convocation, which is sort of our scholarship ceremony for our graduates on June 4th at 6 p.m. in the high school auditorium, and then on Saturday, June 6th at 6 p.m. on the stadium field will be graduation. It will be a wonderful rain-free evening. I'm willing it to happen.
Write that down.
And then in terms of recognitions, the Cape and Islands League recently celebrated its first annual Cape and Islands League Scholar Athlete Awards. Congratulations to our high school seniors Patrick Jordan and Ariel Long, who received the 2025-26 Cape and Islands League Scholar Athlete of the Year Award. And high school grad Emma Mon, class of 2018, delivered the keynote speech at the ceremony. Team Monomoy came out in full force to support the Sharing Kindness Suicide Awareness Walk on May 16th. In addition to participating in the walk, many of our students and staff also volunteered as safety officials along the route and helped before and after the event. At the Massachusetts celebration of Girls and Women in Sports Day on May 19th, Monomoy Athletic Director Karen Gilmet was recognized as a Massachusetts Woman in Athletics with the Massachusetts Women in Athletics Distinguished Service Award. The event was held by the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association. Since joining Monomoy in 2016, Ms. Gilmet has been the driving force behind the transformation of the district's pre-K through 12 wellness and interscholastic athletics programs, including introducing several key programs like girls volleyball, girls lacrosse, indoor track and field, unified basketball, and unified track and field. Monomoy Regional School District was honored by the state as a school wellness champion after completing the Massachusetts School Wellness Coaching Program. The Massachusetts School Wellness Coaching Program pairs schools and districts with a wellness coach who facilitates meetings and provides technical assistance throughout the school year with respect to local wellness policy assessment, action planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. During the recognition ceremony at the 2026 Healthy Kids Healthy Program Summit, a special banner was gifted to the district, and a team from Monomoy attended breakout sessions. The Monomoy Regional High School student Davian Dawkins represented Monomoy as a student member of the district's Wellness Committee, along with Monomoy Middle School teacher Bambi Thompson. And then lastly, just earlier today, I received an email from the Commissioner of Education congratulating our district on being one of, I think it was 55 in the state, which is about 1/6 of the state, must have gotten similar emails sort of congratulating us on decreasing chronic absenteeism this school year by over 5%. And just so you know, chronic absenteeism is if a student were to miss 18 or more days in a school year, which would be 2 days, averaging out 2 days a month. And there's a lot of research that's out there on the relationship between chronic absenteeism and students, sort of not finishing school and just their academic challenges that students have from missing that. We put a lot of emphasis as an admin team on focusing on supporting our families and getting the kids to be here every day, make sure every minute counts, as Robin and I have said for years. So congratulations to each of the schools for making that happen.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have taken the votes tonight. We've had the presentation of warrants. Everybody has signed the warrants? I think I still have to. Okay, great. All right. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Good night, everybody. This is your school committee team in Chatham, Harwich.